Hello and welcome to the first day of school at Saturday Morning Cartoons Academy, the unaccredited institution that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Bringing you the morning announcements, I'll be your principal, Dave Trumbore. Overseeing your homeroom this morning, he's your gym teacher, your guidance counselor, and that one teacher who gets a little handsy. He's my co-host, Sean Paul Ellis. How's it going, buddy?
David. I'm doing well. How about yourself, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's the first day of school.
I know. Can you just get down and give me 20 push-ups right now?
Ah, shit. I shouldn't have made you the gym teacher. Yeah.
And while you do it, I'm going to rub your calves.
What about my cats?
Just going to massage your calves.
Oh, I heard cats. I thought you were going to massage my cats.
Massage cats. Also, why are you bringing cats to gym class?
I don't know. It's the first day. I don't know how this works yet.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm the principal
I'm be honest,
of this school, but
PE,
cats are allowed.
PE is going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to having a great year with you kids, with you kid. And
no, and all the kids out there too. Welcome to school, everybody. Welcome to first day. Got to get your orientation down.
Oh yeah, this is the first in our installment of our September back to school.
It is. It's great.
Yeah.
Back to school. We've never really even been there before, but we're gonna do it. Back to school.
I think. Well, let me ask this question.
What you got?
Of you, David.
Okay.
Now that you are no longer in school and you don't have to go to school anymore,
right?
How much of a fucking relief is this?
You know what? If I could get away with it, I would be a full-time student.
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna say I'd be a full-time student. You know that I went back to school after an extended hiatus of having graduated from college. I went back to school briefly just to make beer. So I mean that's not really legitimately going back to school.
It's legitimate. You got a certificate.
I got a piece of paper I hang on the wall. And it's not that shield thingy you see back there.
Nope.
But yeah, I mean I love the idea of having these institutions where you can actually go and better yourself through learning more from people who actually know what they're talking about. Unfortunately, the way our system works these days, that's not really how it goes all the time. It's just you pay a lot of money to maybe get something you can use after you graduate. Not to go off on a tangent, but I miss kind of the mentorship programs and the what do you call it when you would like come out of high school and you'd go to a trade school where you would enter into a trade.
Yeah.
I forget what you call it exactly, but I miss that kind of stuff because I honestly think
it was a trade school.
Yeah, trade school, but there's apprenticeship. That's what I'm trying to think of. Apprenticeship. We don't really have those anymore.
Would you like a little known weird fact about myself?
Absolutely.
When I was a junior in high school, they had a production company that came and did auditions because they wanted to make a apprenticeship video for kids who were not going to go on to college.
Right.
And I think they were recruiting for some company that was in the area, that was in the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area, that if you wanted to continue on.
That's the capital of Pennsylvania for our friends out there.
Capital PA.
Welcome to school where you learn things.
So the idea behind this was that you would go and you would do this trade program with them, and at the end you'd be a tool and die maker.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it was an industrial video that I did.
Yeah.
It was the first industrial video that I'd ever done where, I had auditioned for this. I got accepted. I was the main person that they picked. So it's my face for, I think, an entire 25 to 30 minutes doing voiceover of everything.
That's
of
awesome.
People like going around a shop to me in my actual high school, walking around, talking with some friends.
Oh, that's cool.
And then it all concluded with this really, really windy day where my hair was very long and it was parted down the middle, and I'm walking towards my car, and because of the wind, it's all just blowing up on one side, like off and away. I say this story to tell you that I found that video. I found the VHS tape of it, and I need to. I will.
You got to transfer it. We got to get that.
No worries. I have
because you got to teach these kids.
Yeah, it was also funny that as I'm doing this and getting paid very, very minimal, I think I got maybe $200 for doing this video.
That's not bad,
which, hey, not bad.
Back in the day.
High school kid, I'll take it. As I'm doing this, I'm filling out all of my applications for college, like behind the scenes, just like, no, I'm not going to be a tool and die maker.
No, we're not doing this.
I'm not going to do this.
I'm going to own those guys.
Yeah, exactly. But for some people, it's a really good option, and it's a great opportunity.
I mean, if you can come out of college, if you can come out of high school and go into this, and then come out of that program with pretty much a guaranteed job and not a lot of debt and a guaranteed income to start, and pretty much a guaranteed like ladder to climb, that's a real good way to go.
Right, really is.
If only we could do it all again. But unfortunately, we're not quite at the college level for today's show.
Right.
We are pretty much stuck in elementary school. Now, I do have a question. I have a question for you, though. How was your school system kind of structured? Because in this particular show, we have sixth graders that are occupying the same playground as fourth graders.
Okay.
And for my school, that would never have happened, just the way it was structured.
I think that in our one building that we had, I think it was K through 5.
Okay, yeah.
And so it was kindergarten, first grade through fifth grade. And then you transfer over to a middle school. And middle school was, I know that this is different for some people, but my middle school was 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then for 9 through 12 was in a totally separate building. Yeah,
mine was, I was just talking to my girlfriend about this. My school was completely messed up, and it still is today. I mean, I'm sure it's pretty much the same with all the decent-sized school districts before you get into like the mega city things where they have like PS 119, PS 117.
Right.
But we had like, I don't know, 5 or 6 different elementary schools that were K through 5. And then we had, we had one middle school for 6 and 7. And then we had a secondary, like middle schools and intermediate school. That was actually 8 and 9. And then we would go to high school for 10, 11, 12. It was bizarre. Now it's changed since then. But yeah, that's just how it was. So at our particular
has it changed and it's different where it's like seniors and kindergartners go in the same building.
There are schools
and then it's just
like
a random
though.
Hodgepodge of
that's the weirdest thing. I know kids, like, I met kids in college that they went to schools like that, you know, almost like it was back in like the pioneer days where it was like a one-room schoolhouse.
Nice.
And you were like an 18-year-old getting ready to graduate as this like 5-year-old was learning how to make shapes. Like, how does that work? But I don't know. That's just not how I grew up. But I knew people that did, which is crazy. Crazy. So it's conceivable that this cartoon we're talking about today could at least have 4th graders and 6th graders and sort of kindergartners, sort of, all kind of existing in the same plane during the recreational fun time in the middle of the day of recess.
Right.
I said it.
Yeah.
I said it. We're talking recess today.
Yeah.
Were you familiar with this one? I know we've talked about this one before, but
I'm familiar with it. I know that I watched a couple episodes when it was on. I don't think that this one, I'm aware of it. I know that I watched several episodes, but I don't think it ever resonated with me in the way that I know that it has for some people, which is great.
A lot of people too. It seems like there's a lot of like fan fervor out there. There's a lot of sites dedicated to this show. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of nostalgia around it. I hope we do it justice because we haven't actually seen it before, so I don't have that nostalgia bug for this particular show. But it was entertaining. I mean, it was. I'll just get into the history right now so you guys know kind of like what we're talking about here. So Recess was an American animated television series created by Paul Germain and Joe, here we go, and Salah Bahir.
And Salah
Bahir. They were from then on known as Paul and Joe. That's actually like their production company. I think was just Paul and Joe Productions because it was much easier than Germain and Salah Bahir. Recess premiered on ABC. It was a Disney production, so Walt Disney was the production company behind this. Premiered on ABC August 31st, 1997, part of the One Saturday Morning block, which later became known as ABC Kids. The series ended on November 15th of 2001 with 65 episodes and a total of 6 seasons.
Hit that 65 mark.
They hit that 65. Hit that 65. Actually, I think there were 127 segments. So each episode actually had 2 segments too. So they were both about 10 to 12 minutes long for 23 minutes or so of showtime. So there are actually quite a few segments that were out there. Very successful show, you know, decent number of episodes, decent number of seasons. Actually led to being syndicated on a host of Disney networks for quite some time. And now we were talking about it here. So that is the history of the show. I will turn it back over to Sean, who will let you know what Recess was all about.
Sure. The series focuses on 6 elementary school students and their interaction with other classmates and teachers. During recess, the children form their own society, complete with government and a class structure set against the backdrop of the regular school that they are all attending. Yeah.
Now, what did you think of that kind of take on the story? Because it was titled Recess, and it was literally it took place during recess. So like these little 10-minute snippets were almost like real time, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool.
I thought it was fun. I thought it was an interesting convention for the cartoon.
Yeah.
So it was different. I want to mention really quick.
Sure.
Just kind of we'll run down some of these main characters.
Right.
Because they're
because they don't do that in the show very well.
Well, I mean, we watched one particular episode, and so you kind of jump right into some of the characters, and so
yeah.
So
I even watched the first episode too, And they really just jump right into them. They don't do like, this is so-and-so, or even in the intro music, which we'll talk about, they don't say like, here's so-and-so, or even just list his name on the screen. So
we have the leader of the gang is TJ Detweiler. We have an Italian-American hot-headed tomboy, which is Ashley Spinelli.
I love that
she's
description.
Wonderful. Popular jock Vince LaSalle. Awkward genius Gretchen Grunler. Gentle giant Mikey Bloomberg. And an upbeat yet unlucky military brat, Gus Griswold.
Yeah, so we don't really get to know all these characters too well in the episodes that we watched. Again, I only got to watch 2 of these segments here. And Sean and I did. Yeah.
I will say the one thing about the one episode that we both watched that was really enjoyable was that you get full exposure to almost the entire cast of characters that is in the show.
Yeah, pretty much everybody's featured as far as those main characters that Sean just ran through, especially and some other secondary characters as well. You don't get the full background of them, but you get enough of their character to know like what this kid's about, and where he or she fits in with the group,
and the interaction and the respect and love that this main 6 have for each other, and what they're willing to do, and how far they're willing to go out of the way in order to support each other, which is awesome.
Definitely, and it turns out it's pretty far in the case of the episode that we watched. They get into some funny stuff. But yeah, again, just going back to the premise of the show, it's cool that it takes place outside of the confines of a classroom. So it doesn't normally take place within the halls of the school or within the classes themselves, or it really doesn't even feature the teachers or the principals all that much. You know, they kind of pop up when needed, but it's not the main crux of the show. It's focused on these kids and the schoolyard and things that go on, and it is like a jungle. Like it's got this.
In some cases, it is a literal
jungle. Yeah, and they visit the kindergartners. It's an interesting way to introduce a lot of this imagination, because when we were kids out on the playground, you had the jungle gym and stuff, and you had the swing set, and you could dig in the sand, and you could run around, play kickball or whatever. But you had to use your imagination for a lot of stuff. So it's interesting that they kind of bring that to bear for this show, and they allowed them to, there's a king of the playground, there's this wild tribe of kindergartners, there's kids who are digging their way to China, there's all kinds of tropes, but at the same time, it's very imaginative and very fun. And I really enjoyed that.
And not to, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, you talked and discussed about the fact that this is about the recess portion of their day.
Yeah.
And not a ton else.
No.
And so the thing that is fun about this is that there were so many other cartoons, especially I guess the 2 that come to mind that are very reminiscent that were live action, that spent almost all of their time in the classroom. And I'm thinking of Saved by the Bell and Boy Meets World. And I don't believe Saved by the Bell was on during this time, but I know the end of Boy Meets World, I think that show wrapped up in like 2000.
Okay.
So, at that point, I think it's pretty easy for me to say I was watching both of those shows frequently, and Saved by the Bell was in reruns forever. It probably still is on TBS.
Still is.
And there's probably like a 2-hour block where TBS is just like, all right,
now, guys,
we've got 12 hours of Saved by the Bell and then 12 hours of Law and Order. So that's all we're doing today.
Back to back.
But
wait, hold on. Didn't Mark Paul Gosselaar grow up to be on one of those like Law and Order type shows?
Yeah, he did Bash and
Bash the Stampede. No, it was like Bash and
it was Trigon.
It was some sort of like lawyer type show, like buddy lawyer kind of show.
Yeah, but that got canceled. I think that one.
Rizzoli and Isles?
No, it was not. It was Franklin and Bash is what he was.
Franklin and Bash.
That's it. Franklin
Templeton.
and Bash. Franklin Templeton and Bash.
Yeah. That's our law firm here at Saturday Morning Cartoons.
Franklin Templeton and
Bash, featuring Mark Paul Gosselaar.
I'd love to have him as a lawyer. He seems like a good guy.
His retainer is a killer though, but
it's ridiculous. He's not making any money right now.
Not off of us.
Not off of us. But I will say, it's very easy to feel that with all those shows revolving around the interaction of people in a classroom, it's very easy to feel inundated with a lot of those things. And so this was a nice, I want to say, palate cleanser to kind of get you out of the classroom into something a little bit different.
And especially because they only had, these little 10-minute segments. So it was literally like the length of their recess pretty much.
Yeah.
So it would kind of start with the bell for recess and it would end with the bell to call them back in. And sometimes they work that into the plot. Sometimes it was kind of left unsaid. But yeah.
It was a nice way, to piggyback off what you said, it was a nice way to sometimes add stakes to what they were doing.
Exactly.
And simply say, like, we have to finish this in 10 minutes. Otherwise, Disney is going to cut us from the legs.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to chop our tiny little, they're going to chop our tiny toes off.
Oh, one at a time.
What?
No, it's true. It's actually how they do it. So, let's jump in here to the opening credits, which there really weren't. So it was kind of just the opening theme. What was your take on this theme?
It was fun. It was interesting. You get a very quick exposure to sort of, Dave, as you mentioned, the different sort of tropes that people fall into. You gain some very quick exposure to the different tropes for these 6 main characters, and also sort of some of the surrounding supporting characters and cast, and how their interaction is going to take place. The thing that was challenging, and I think before I say what was challenging, I'll say the thing that was positive about this was that they really did a great job in terms of like keeping it moving and giving you all of that exposure and meeting all those people and doing it very quickly. And it didn't seem like it was forced or that it was trite in any way. The thing that was challenging is that there is no introduction to those characters.
Right,
so
exactly.
if you're not given their name, you have to wait to pick that up in the actual show. And as David mentioned, it doesn't happen all that often. So it could be a little bit challenging if you're not given that name to just be like, oh, the character with the baseball hat, or the girl with the glasses and the pigtails and the freckles. And so, I would have loved to have seen just like a quick bump that had those names, because those are the pivotal. Those are such pivotal characters.
Yeah.
I want to know, and I want to be able to pick up on exactly who they are very quickly.
Yeah, and especially because they don't work in how they all know each other, or how long they've been friends, or anything like that. They do work in their names eventually when they say, like, if one gets caught by the teacher and she's like, oh, so and so, you're in trouble again. And it's like, okay, this kid's TJ.
Thanks.
Right, now I got it. And it's fine. I appreciate when they work it in an organic kind of way. But yeah, as far as the theme song goes, it would have been nice because they have the kids' faces kind of pop up for a scene. So it's like this kid gets a scene, and then this kid gets a scene, and then this kid gets a scene. It would have been nice, like Sean said, if they just had that little text bubble that kind of pops up and it's just like TJ, Spinelli, Vince, the other guy, so-and-so, cheerleader, whatever. So
the ugly one.
That would have been great. But they didn't give it to us. It's fine. Yeah. You get to know these kids over the course of the episodes, and it's great. As far as the tone, the actual music, did you kind of enjoy it?
It was a little militant.
Yeah, but I thought that was interesting. It reminded me of like Hogan's Heroes, of F Troop.
Oh,
which
okay.
Obviously, 4th graders and 6th graders love to watch. But these are like, older classic kind of military themed comedies where it's usually about a group of friends who happen to be trapped in a situation where they all have to like watch out for each other, and they're in kind of like this regimented, organized situation. Yeah. So it's kind of like, it's almost like military.
I don't know about you, but I definitely felt, kind of coming up through, the school system, a lot of the times it was like, this is very rigid. This is very, like there's a certain path, and I'm being told exactly where to go where to go and what to do. And I could see that. And I like the fact that they kind of played around with it. It was a little bit weird because I did definitely get like a Hogan's Hero kind of like, vibe from it a little bit. Like I almost kind of wish that it had gotten darker and I'd gotten like a MASH vibe from it.
or like,
like if they had just played like Suicide is Painless in the background, and you're just like, what the fuck is this show?
I was thinking like Flight of the Valkyries or something would come in as they just like fly a helicopter up the Vietnam landscape.
I mean, how many times did you wonder, there were times where like TJ, like Detweiler, would just look over at somebody and be like, I was in Nam. I would have loved for like a really weird, even maybe like an Apocalypse Now.
I hope there was an Apocalypse Now episode.
Like reference every once in a while. I mean, I know that there were some episodes where they, in this series, where they like lampooned or they talked about like other things that were popular in pop culture.
Yeah, they definitely do reference. They do this kind of cross reference of pop culture stuff. So that does. So
the ones that I saw were that they referenced at some point Good Will Hunting,
right?
2001: A Space Odyssey, and A Few Good Men. And so I could see like A Few Good Men, obviously very like military, focused film. I mean, it's all about a JAG officer, so we have that in place. 2001: A Space Odyssey, very futuristic kind of essential building blocks of life, and you can kind of see that beginning, or maybe that primal beginning in some of the kindergartners that they joke around with. I'm curious to go back and find out what Good Will Hunting episode they did, because Good Will Hunting's great, but I just want to see like Spinelli just like, you like apples?
Yeah, exactly.
Just like slam the phone number.
Yeah. On the cafeteria window.
Yeah, on the cafeteria window.
Like on like the lunch order stand. Like the sneeze guard just slams it up there for the cafe
like
lady.
Pizza day. And you're like, all right. Okay.
Every day is meatloaf day from now on.
Oh boy. You were a meatloaf person?
Oh, I love me some meatloaf. I just had meatloaf at home. Homemade meatloaf, homie.
Fair enough. That's good.
All kinds of meats. You don't know where they came from. Put them together. They taste delicious.
They do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
Pretty much anything baked in a loaf. You got it. You got it. That's the way to my heart.
That is exactly.
Way to my arteries. Clogged with meat and loaves. No, I liked it though. It kind of reminded me of the Parks and Rec theme song a little bit too, because it was kind of like, it's militaristic, but it's got a little pomp to it. So it's kind of got
little whimsy.
Yeah, it's got a little whimsy to it. So I think it worked well. It didn't really tell me 100% what the show was going to be about or who the hell was going to be in it, but I think it worked okay. Unfortunately, it wasn't the most memorable thing. I'm struggling to kind of like remember the tune of it now, and Parks and Rec is unfortunately driving that out of my head. So.
Yeah, the second you said Parks and Rec, I can't get that out of my head. Yeah. Damn it. Yeah. I'm not upset about it, but...
Guys, we're going to play Cones of Dunshire live on Twitch someday.
Yes.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Get ready.
So do you want to jump into the episode we did watch today?
Yeah.
How about you give us kind of the title and what exactly, just briefly, what it was about, and then we'll jump into it.
So we watched season 1, episode 6. It was one of the 10-minute vignettes that's called Officer Mikey. And Mikey wants to become a safety ranger, which causes the gang to get help from other people. Yeah. So I wish I knew what it was. It's not like a Rube Goldberg, or not, is it? No, it's not a Rube Goldberg. What is the name? Is it Rube?
The overly complicated machines is a Rube Goldberg machine.
Rube Goldberg. Yep. And so I almost said that this episode was sort of a Rube Goldberg, but it's not. I get
what you're going at, though. I couldn't think of that. There's got to be a name.
There's got to be a word for that.
Yeah.
And it's the idea that, if you help somebody else, in order to help somebody, you help somebody else, and then it creates this
it's like
kind
a
of chain reaction. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This cascading reaction of how to help somebody else in order to get your ultimate goal completed.
It's funny because this, I don't know if it was any specific movies they were drawing from, but this seems almost like a staple of some of the noir detective films where, the femme fatale comes in, talks to, Sam Spade or whatever, and he goes out and talks to the first person. And they're like, well, maybe I remember seeing someone at this time, at this day, but I got this guy who says I owe him like $1,000, and then Spade's like, all right, and then he goes through it's an ever increasing web of intricacy.
Maybe I remember if I had a shot of my favorite bourbon.
Yeah, and then Sam Spade has to go find that bourbon.
All right, well, let me go get you the bourbon. Oh, it's only bourbon that's made once a year, and you're just like, oh my god, you just made this so
kill me. I'm just gonna shoot you and just go through your stuff.
Wait, to pick up on the Law and Order thing, is it always the guy that's like picking something up off of the back of a truck and loading it onto a dock?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I remember that guy. I seen him come through here a couple times.
Yeah.
Oh, but any more detail? I don't know. You're gonna have to make it worth my while. I always wonder if cops just have a stack of 10s and 20s around just to sort of like grease palms in order to get information. And I always wonder if that's something that they like fill out a requisition form for.
No, I think that's just why they rough up like the street kids who are selling drugs in the wire just to get the free spending cash. And then they go give it to the guy who's working the docks also in the wire. And it goes round and round.
Just circle of life.
Circle of life.
Circle of life, guys.
The life of a criminal
like
dollar
of
bill.
A petty criminal.
Yeah. But no, it's an interesting mechanic in this show here because, like you said, they try to do something nice to help out a buddy of theirs. Now, Mikey is kind of the big kind of lumbering guy of the group. But he wants something in this case. It's like apparently it's his new lifelong dream. And the rest of the gang, they're all his friends. So they're going to do pretty much anything they can
Well, you say lifelong dream like it's a bad thing. I think that there are moments, and I know that I'm vulnerable to that.
Yes.
Still to this day, I'll go and see an amazing concert, and then I'll come home and I'll think to myself, "The fuck have I not picked up my guitar in a decade?"
No, I do stuff like that. But that's why I kind of joke when I said lifelong dream, because it was literally like this kid heard about it in the morning, and by homeroom, he was like, "This is my lifelong dream. It's all I've ever wanted. It's all I ever wanted to be."
But I think it's nice to have, dreams of that nature, that when you're exposed to something, you're like, oh, I really do want to do that. I really do want to help people. And his intentions seemed very pure.
Yes. And then the reaction of his friends was fantastic.
Right.
For a while, it was fantastic.
A majority of it.
Yeah.
I think the thing that was challenging for me is that the guy who was the captain of the safety rangers.
Yeah. So why don't you, before we get into him, why don't you tell them exactly who the safety rangers are and why they impressed Mikey so much? Kind of what their message was.
Well, the safety rangers were, for lack of a better term, they were crossing guards. They were the people who, held the stop and go signs at a crosswalk and allowed people to go back and forth, enter and exit school.
Did you have something like this in your school where it was like the kids were recruited to be like, ours was like a safety patrol or a bus patrol?
I don't think
we. And they made you wear this like if that job's not fucking nerdy and like, hey, beat me up enough, they gave you these vests that you had to wear. They were like neon yellow with like reflective strips. I think I did it once and was like, no, never again.
I don't remember if we had something like that. I didn't do it. I did morning announcements.
Oh, okay.
We did a video broadcast morning announcements.
Oh, that's cool. On
so
like a blue screen with a chroma key.
No, we had like this terrible. We had a terrible set that was in our library, and we had like a. It was actually set up where it had like two decent, cameras that were there.
Yeah.
That we could get one shot of both people kind of doing the introduction, and then we could get secondary shots. Where we throw it to another camera for individual people.
For breaking news.
Yeah, and then I sat in the back in the control room, and I did all the fading, and I queued up all the cameras and stuff like that. So I didn't have to. I think I only ever went on camera once or twice. But we just had this terrible library set that had like the bust of somebody's head in the background with like a shit ton of books.
I want to know who that bust was now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd love to go back and check it out, but it was always really funny. I always enjoyed doing that. So no, I never did anything.
No, that's cool.
Like
I
still don't care about safety, so
no, I think it was like a mandatory
big deal for
thing.
me.
I think, like I said, our school was K through
mandatory
5.
Safety.
It was. I think it was like the 5th graders had to. Everybody got like a week or something where you had to like, escort the kindergartner kids, make sure they all got onto the bus. Why you're putting 5th graders in charge of like 5-year-olds?
Nah.
Not the best idea. I think we lost a few in the winter of '92, but it's fine. Whatever.
Well, we had blizzards that year in PA.
We did. We had bad blizzards that year. I think those kids are still wandering around out in the woods somewhere.
And if we didn't lose them in '92, we definitely lost them in '93 when it got even worse.
Yes. All right. So we've got this school. We've got the safety rangers who, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're a little Hitler youth-like.
Yeah.
At least the leader is.
Right. Yeah.
And you were talking about this before. So what's their leader like?
He's just a dick. In fact, one of the lines that I wrote down that he wrote. So we mentioned that Mikey is a taller, heavier set character that's in this main core group of 6 people. And you have to wonder, and this has to be something to consider, that, we have a lot of the times when we sit here and we criticize and we say to people like, look, you really have to be careful about the language that you use with kids.
Yeah.
You really have to be a little bit more understanding and accepting. And you understand, this show, when it came out, in like 97, I don't want to say that was the origin or the genesis of a lot of these conversations. In fact, I'll say that a lot of them didn't really start or begin until maybe mid 2000s. But here you have a show where this kid he's a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
He's good-hearted. He's good-natured.
He has a healthy appetite.
He's a healthy appetite, and this captain of the safety rangers looks him dead in the face and just goes, "Fat boy here is definitely out." And I paused for a moment, like, "Fuck, that is really." And I guess I'm saying this because like I knew that when I was in, like I was much heavier. I was pretty heavy when I was in high school, and and to be made to be made fun of that, to have somebody like say that flat out to your face, the reason you can't do this thing is because you are fat.
Yeah.
That is.
And not just this thing, but at this point, this is Mikey's like lifelong dream, remember? Like he sees these guys in their uniforms. He sees them doing a good job to like bring safety to the school. He just wants to be a part of it. He wants to be a safety ranger. All his other friends are just like,
wants to be part of this Hitler Youth.
Yeah. Well, but that's the other thing. So Captain Brad, who's this charismatic, energetic young leader, he's blonde, he's well put together, he's got a close crop kind of blonde haircut with like weird shaved sides, and he's out there running drills with the rest of his safety rangers, and they're basically just goose stepping through their formation. So it's a thinly veiled approximation of like a Hitler Youth kind of thing.
Which is weird that they snuck this in on a Disney show.
Yeah, especially when they're just like, oh, Mikey should totally be part of that.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I want to set everything up.
Yeah.
We're introduced to Captain Brad and the rest of the safety rangers, and they have this informative video that they're getting ready to show everybody. And so
I think it was a VHS. Was it VHS?
Was it a VHS? I thought it was a projector.
Oh,
maybe it went to a projector screen, and so they're getting ready to show all this, and they ask and they make the request, can somebody get the lights? And poor Mikey, like a bull in a china shop, he immediately volunteers and raises his hand. But now that I'm thinking about him raising his hand, that may have been a Hitler salute. Yeah. So he immediately volunteers to do this, jumps out of his desk, which, let's be honest, those desks when we were in elementary, middle, and high school, they all sucked.
Yeah, especially for big kids.
I guarantee that they are probably the reason that all of us go to chiropractors or massage therapists or continually have exactly why we have all these problems like with our spines and shit. And so Mikey goes to get out, and poor him, you see him just kind of collapse and fall onto himself. He snaps pulls the projector, the projector snaps and shoots across and hits Safety Stan, which is their cardboard cutout hero for the safety rangers, and just decapitates him. Yep. Just clean cut, knocks his fucking head off.
That was pretty good. I enjoyed that. I like the little slapstick stuff, especially because they brought him back. I will say that this show is good about doing callbacks, which is interesting in a 10-minute segment that they're able to do callbacks and not make them seem like ham-fisted. They're actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where we're at. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we have Mikey being enamored by these safety rangers, and he goes on this, he brings the rest of the other 5 kids sort of on this vision, this idea.
Right.
And he wrapped it up so perfectly, which is something that is not indicative of being a child, of wanting to be a safety ranger in any way, shape, or form. He tells everybody, I just want to be respected by all mankind. Yeah. And that's a lofty goal.
It is lofty,
in some sense.
In 4th grade. Yeah, I also love that he said he wants to be, because he's going to be a crossing guard, he wants to be, quote, the last line of defense between children and the evils of technology.
Yes, that was such a great line.
Because he's defending the children against like a guy on a bike or an old lady in a car. Right. Those are the evils of technology. I just like that.
Well, that old woman was texting.
She was texting.
She was not texting.
Drunk.
97, they did not have driving drunk.
Driving drunk.
Did we have texting in
She was
97?
very ahead of her time.
She's a very progressive old woman.
Very progressive old drunk lady. Who almost ran over a school full of children.
Right.
So he brings the kids together, and like Sean said, he's like, I just have this simple lifelong goal of being respected by all mankind. So of course his buddies are like, all right, man, we'll figure this out. We'll figure out what we're gonna do.
I mean, here's and I think to their point, this is the challenge: is if you said to me, if you looked me right in the eyes right now across this stream, and you said, this is my life's goal, this is the thing that I want to do, I'd want to help you with that. I would want to help you achieve that goal.
This is actually why Sean is doing the podcast. He hates this each and every week, but I told him a little more than a year ago, this is my lifelong dream, so he is now tethered to this podcast for life.
Well, then tether away.
Just to let you know.
So, happy to help.
But yeah, I mean that's what friends do. That's what friends do.
Yeah, that's what friends do.
And they try. Like at first I think like, okay, we'll just go talk to this guy and just be like, hey man, Mikey's good people, just let him in the safety rangers. And then like you said, Captain Brad just basically calls him a fat ass. And you find out pretty quickly that Captain Brad is not all he professes to be, because he treats his own rangers like crap too. He's got these two rangers that are with him that he keeps bossing around, and he keeps harassing them, and eventually
way to create this environment of fear and intimidation consistently.
Familiar.
Yeah, sounds very familiar.
And
Disney
have,
XD, how did you get away with this?
They have this little code book too, that just tells them the rules for everything.
Just seems like a small little manifesto document that they have carrying around.
Yeah, like I don't know. I can't think of a good title for it right now.
Yeah, I can't think of a good. Yeah.
Something
Doesn't
German.
matter. It's okay.
Something German for the efficiency. But interestingly enough, this is where the rest of the group kind of starts to come in and show their skills. So we have Gretchen. Well, before Gretchen actually does her part, we learn that Spinelli has basically used her like grifting skills and her pocket picking skills to not only steal the code book from Captain Brad. Didn't she steal his like watch or something too?
Yeah, she did, and it was the greatest. She lifts the watch.
Yeah.
And they're just like, you should really give that book back. And she goes, yeah. And as like almost an aside, like just a quick tag at the end of this joke, she just goes, well, I'm keeping the watch.
Yeah.
It's a quartz.
It's a quartz.
Like, it's a quartz.
Which is great. I mean, so that in like 2 seconds, you've learned a lot about her character, and then you immediately learn about Gretchen, because she's like, she has this book, she looks through it, and she's like, well, according to this rule, Mikey, he can't be a ranger. But according to the subsection of this rule, there is basically a loophole that lets 2 of the other rangers act as sponsors for Mikey. So if they can get 2 of the other rangers to turn on their captain and say that they want to sponsor Mikey, then guess what? Mikey's going to be a ranger. Right. So that starts this whole kind of cascade of favors, where the gang goes through kind of behind Mikey's back, because they're trying to do it to surprise him. They start to go through this whole list of like, okay, can you guys sponsor him? What do you want in return? And it actually reminded me, again, I don't have a term for this. I'm sure there is one. Somebody out there, if they know it,
it's going to kill me. It's going to kill me that I don't know what this is called.
I don't think I ever knew it, to be honest with you. But it reminded me of the book, I can't remember the name of the book, but it was basically like a town that was plagued with mice. So they brought cats in. And the cats got rid of most of the mice, but now it's a town that's plagued with cats.
Like Pied Piper?
Kind of. But they bring dogs in, and it's this escalation. It's almost like like a Cold War escalation of arms, an arms race kind of thing. So they're plagued with mice, they bring in cats. They're now plagued with cats, they bring in dogs. They're plagued with dogs, they bring in like lions or something crazy. And then they bring in elephants to scare the lions off. And then when they're plagued with elephants, they have to bring mice back in. So it's just kind of this cyclical nature of like, the more complicated you start to make things, then the more complicated your response is going to have to be. And it's this kind of like positive feedback cycle. So these guys, as they are asking for favors from these other kids, are having to do favors themselves. So it's just a complicated cycle, but it actually resolves really nicely.
Yeah, it reminded me of and I know that, again, this isn't like the name of the thing, but it was did you ever hear that nursery rhyme that was there was an old lady who swallowed a fly?
Yeah, it's one of those type of things that just builds and builds and builds. Yeah, except unlike a lot of those other things, this actually resolved nicely. You get to see a resolution.
Right.
So,
and it wasn't an old woman just swallowing random crap.
No, she was just drunk texting and driving through lines of school children.
The scourge of technology.
Grandma.
So we jump into this where they go to the 2 Hitler Youth to sponsor Mikey.
Yeah, the 2 guys that were kind of getting picked on because they're like the only 2 guys that are going to turn on their captain. Yeah.
Right. So they're bribing them with hot fudge sundaes.
Which, I mean, done right there. That's favor enough for me.
One of my favorite lines was they were like, hey, let us know if that hot fudge gets any colder, because nothing's worse than cold fudge.
Nothing's worse than cold fudge.
Wait,
they were like, I know.
Yeah, I love the response.
I love the
like,
kid
yes!
logic. Yeah, cold hot fudge is terrible.
So they asked these 2 kids. Ultimately, everything always boils down to what is the one thing that you really, really want? Like, what is your heart's desire?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Your heart's desire.
And so their heart's desire was to be able to sing.
It was a national anthem.
The national anthem at the beginning of the day during like the flag ceremony that they have in the morning.
I love that after each of these favors, most of the other kids are just like, well, I guess we're not going to be able to do this. And then TJ's just like, hold on. I think we can make this work. Like every single time.
Finger to the chin every time. Just like, there actually might be a way.
Yeah. He's always got something.
So then they go into the
he's basically like office. He was like this kid that was a student, but he was also like an assistant to the teacher.
Well,
he's basically like a little brown
Let's be serious. Let's be serious.
What do you got?
He is not a helper. He's an aide.
He's an aide,
which is what his name is Menlo. He was very particular about saying that he is not like a volunteer. He is not anything else. He is an aide.
He's an aide. Menlo the aide.
Menlo the aide.
Who's very persnickety little fella.
Well, I mean, what did Menlo really want?
Oh, that's true. He has a little crush. Menlo has a little crush.
He's got a little crush.
On one of the Ashleys. Ashley A.
Ashley A.
Ashley A. Good choice, Menlo. Good choice.
Good choice, bro.
Of all the Ashleys, she's the best Ashley.
Why did he pick this Ashley, though?
Something about her hair?
Nope.
Well, that's why I picked this Ashley.
Because he's always filing. He's doing all the filing in the office.
Oh, I missed that. I just knew he wanted to carry your books.
No, she was always the first in the file, first in his heart.
Who's the first girl in your class? Go. First girl.
First girl at what?
Just remember from your roll call. Who's your first girl?
Oh my God, I have no idea.
Go. Just go.
I really wish I really
I remember mine back to elementary school for no reason. It was Lauren.
Do you really?
Lauren Assisi. And I was always pissed because she always got called first to do cool stuff, and I had to sit there and wait for like 23 letters of the alphabet. It sucked.
I have no idea.
It's weird the stuff I harbor in my creepy elementary school kid brain.
My creepy elementary school brain. I don't remember actually who. I mean, I was an E too, so I was up at the top of the alphabet. I don't.
That's true. See, you didn't have to suffer like the kids at the bottom end. They never went backwards. They never started at Z. Nobody ever thought of that.
Maybe just one day, just do it backwards.
Just one day.
Yes. Just one day. I don't see what the big fucking deal is.
What's the big deal? Or go by first name. Whatever.
Yeah.
They don't care.
So as Menlo, what was Menlo's heart's desire? What was he just like, this is what I'm amped up about?
So he was all about Ashley A, and he wanted just one day, just one time to help carry her books home.
Not being creepy.
Just wanted to carry her books. Not being creepy. I mean, that's kind of creepy.
But that's very fucking creepy.
Super creepy.
How she handled it is actually even creepier than what his intention was.
I wouldn't say it's creepier. I would say it's very typical of what this Ashley
They are
group was
on
about.
par creeps. They are like on the same level creeps.
But it's like they're hot creeps. And I say that weirdly because they're fourth graders. So
fair.
So they're supposed to be the hot girls of the group. So they're basically just bitchy. They're just bitchy. So the kids are, one of them's like, nope, this is never going to happen. TJ's like, I might have an idea.
I might have a way.
I might have an idea. So they approach the Ashleys, and I believe there's 4 of them.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but they're all kind of like doing each other's hair or something.
They're all braiding one another's hair.
All braiding hair.
It's like a daisy chain of hair braiders.
Oh, boy. And they approach Ashley, and they give her this ultimatum, kind of just like, hey, Menlo, the aide, wants to carry your books home. And she says something to the effect like, oh, so some nerdy little guy that I've never really talked to in my entire life wants to carry my books? Sure, why wouldn't I help him out? And they're like, oh, you serious? And she's like, no. And then they all laugh. Everything's hilarious.
What a bitch.
Total bitch. But there is something that Ashley A wants.
No, there is.
And what is it, buddy?
Turns
is it
out
something wholesome? Is it her heart's desire?
It's not as much of her heart's desire as it is property of hers that has been stolen.
Right.
So her
I love
younger
her distraction,
sister,
by the way.
Yeah, I know. A slug.
She's
and
like,
everybody runs away.
And all the girls run away. Yeah.
So great distraction for
well done, Ashley A.
It's actually that's my smoke bomb term when I'm around attractive women. I'm just like, ew, a snail. And everybody scatters.
Yeah.
Scatters like cockroaches. So Ashley A is her sister has stolen her diary.
Right.
And she's worried about her sister blackmailing her.
Which she could do with literally pages 5 through 8?
5 through 8.
Yeah.
So she's concerned about this. So they go to the sister.
Now, turns out her sister is how old?
Her sister's in kindergarten. It must be like 5 years old.
Now's a great time to talk about these kindergartners. So
okay. What was the literary feel, the classic literary feel that you immediately gathered from seeing these kindergartners?
The classic literary feel?
Because the classic literary feel. Because I got a very distinct Lord of the Flies vibe.
In the sense of the kids among themselves in their group, but it was interesting seeing it from the perspective of the fourth graders, because they actually approach them like they have to approach them like from the developed world, sort of like the Europeans meeting the Native Americans for the first time, talking like very slowly and very simply and trying not to get killed.
We are people from another grade.
From far away.
Far away.
So they always like introduce themselves like, I come on behalf of the fourth graders or something like that. And it's always these kids, these little kindergartners are always running around unsupervised, wearing like tribal clothes, like twigs and bark, and they're covered in like face paint, and they usually have an older kid like tied up to a central stick over a fire or something. There's always crazy shit going on.
There's always like a weird allusion towards cannibalism that's a little bit unsettling.
The kids, so in the first episode, they visit the kindergartners too, and basically they try to ask them for help again, and their like leader decides that they're just going to eat them. So they just chase them around the playground. They always just say like, let's eat them. His kindergartners are really weird, apparently.
Oh my god.
So it turns out that Ashley A's little sister, Brittany A, is a kindergartner. And she has a diary, but she's not going to give it up for candy or money or nothing, except one thing. Her heart's desire.
She wants to, well, I don't know if we can do that. You know what?
What do you think?
I might know a way. And she asks that she would like to sit for one day. Yeah. Even just for like a quick moment. Yeah. She wants to sit on King Bob's throne.
That was a great time to talk about King Bob.
King Bob is the ruler of the playground.
And he's a sixth grader.
He's a sixth grader.
That's right.
He sits atop like a barca-lounger.
Like a lazy boy, yeah.
Like a lazy boy.
Like on top of a thing, though. So he can like lord over the entire
a jungle
playground.
Gym, yeah. And he's got people who are fanning him with large ferns. He's very regal.
Yeah.
As regal as you can get in a playground setting.
For being 12 and thinking you're king of a playground.
Exactly.
Yeah. But so King Bob shows up in the first episode too, and I thought it was interesting that they need his help then, and they actually appeal to his emotions. So, they're very respectful to him. But he basically says like, oh, I'm not going to help this kid because he's just some stupid kid. And they go on this whole tangent about like, well, everybody's some stupid kid to somebody else who's older than them. They're like, I'm a stupid kid to my older brother, and you're probably a stupid kid to maybe your mom. And he's just kind of like, oh. So he's got this real like soft side that they kind of like wheedle all the time, and they know how to manipulate him. So it's actually kind of interesting that they did it again in this episode.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, he has one of the more profound.
Yeah, him and
requests.
Mikey, I think.
Right. He has this very profound statement where, he's at the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
And all these people love him, but he's concerned that he doesn't feel that people actually know the real him.
Right.
And so he just wants somebody to love him for who he is.
Yeah.
And everybody in the gang is just like, well, it's been a good run.
Yeah, sorry.
Throwing in the towel. Fuck it.
Yep.
We're not going to make this.
Nope.
And then just TJ, just hand on the chin. I think we can figure this out. I think we might have an idea how we could fix this.
I loved his idea because I was like, oh, I don't know how they're going to get out of this one.
Yeah,
I thought they were just going to do something sappy like, well, we'll be your friend. But what they did was so much better.
Yes. And what did they do?
What'd they get him, buddy?
They got him a puppy.
Done.
Got him a puppy.
And then there's this great little like sort of montage of them working their way backwards through the episode, more or less, where King Bob has a puppy and he's playing with the puppy and he's super happy, which means as he's playing with the puppy that Brittany A gets to sit on his throne, which means
that Ashley A gets her book back,
her diary back, right?
Her diary back, which means Menlo gets to carry Ashley A's books in the plastic.
Yes, thank you.
In the plastic.
In plastic, so he doesn't touch them with his gross nerd hands.
Yep. And so as a result, then, the two Hitler Youth that were getting bribed with hot fudge sundaes at the beginning, they get to sing the national anthem at the beginning of the flag ceremony, and they are the worst. They're the worst singers ever Like, it is a crime to sing the national anthem that poorly.
But it's fine because they sponsor Mikey, and Mikey gets to be a safety ranger.
Right.
So he gets his little uniform, he gets his little sash, he gets to hold the sign, and he goes out in the crosswalk while it's a little rainy outside. And you think everything's good, right?
Yeah, and you have the rest of the 5 people in the gang, and they're all walking inside, and they're looking at each other, and they're like, you know what? We did a really good thing today.
Yeah, for a lot of people.
We did exactly. And that was the difference between what I said and you said is what's interesting about this episode.
Yeah.
At first, you're just like, they did a really good thing for a friend, and you're just like, oh no, they helped out like 6 different people.
Yeah, basically
in
strangers.
Getting what their heart's desire was, like throughout the course of this day. Like that, how often do we get to do that as people?
It's like a pay it forward thing, but yeah. That actually works and doesn't kill kids in the end.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, you got to run a little bit faster, Kevin Spacey. No. So they get to that moment where they're having this realization, and they're all happy. And I wouldn't say that they're patting themselves on the back, but they've had a long day, and they're kind of relaxing a little bit.
That's a long recess.
Walk back into that lunchroom. What do they find?
Well, they find their buddy Mikey just sitting at the table and stuffing his face, not in uniform, just in his plain clothes.
Like now, if you remember, we left him and he was outside
in the rain.
He was working as a safety ranger out in the rain.
That's right.
He was doing it, and in the course of these 5 friends who have done him the favor of getting him to where he wanted to be, from them leaving him and walking in, Mikey has beaten them into the cafeteria and is just chowing down.
Yep. He's basically, so they're like, Mikey, what the heck happened? He's like, I gave up. I quit being a safety ranger. I'm like, well, what the hell? He's like, I don't think I was cut out for it. I wasn't cut from that special cloth or whatever. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, this was your lifelong dream. And this isn't a direct quote, but it's pretty close. He's like, oh, it was just the worst day. I had to get up early. I missed breakfast. It was raining. And then I tried to tell some kids on skateboards to slow down, and they spat at me. He's like, that's it. I'm done. I gave up. I didn't want that, which I thought was great. And what is his new dream? Do you remember his new lifelong dream?
His new dream is to be a fighter pilot.
Jet pilot, yeah.
Is to be a jet pilot.
Yeah. Now, I have to wonder, like, this was just cute, and they wrapped it up really nicely, and the first episode had that same kind of thing. Like, the gang had this conflict. They had to rescue TJ from, basically, not detention, but he was just kept from going to recess. So they had to rescue him inside. And they have this crazy, complicated plan that involves like everybody else on the playground. And they finally break into the school and break into where he is. And as soon as they get inside, they see him drop down outside. So they've basically like successfully completed their plan. But he had his own plan the whole time, and he's outside. And then the funny thing is, at the end, it took them both so long to enact their plans that by the time both of them were actually where they needed to be, recess was over. So Mrs. Finster, the disciplinarian, ushers everybody back in. So it's got this kind of like sharp edge to the humor where it has a good message. It's not overly sappy, but there's kind of like this realistic edge to it where Mikey's just like, that was my lifelong dream, but it sucked. So now I just want to be a jet pilot. And I got to wonder, how many more times will they stick up for Mikey and just be like, we're going to help you achieve your lifelong dream as long as you don't screw it up again? You know, at what point, if we saw these kids today, they'd probably be, college now, maybe?
Yeah.
14 years ago. Yeah, probably pretty close to college or just out of it. I don't know.
I think the thing that is challenging, or that was a little bit of a mixed message for me at the end of this episode, is that you know that old adage of when the going gets tough, the tough get going? Yeah. And this was the inverse. Yes. It was like, when shit gets tough, just
quit.
Fucking quit.
Just eat the Twinkies or whatever he was stuffing in his face.
I forget what it was, but somebody was saying that old shitty adage to me the other day. They're just like, look, when life gives you lemons, they were like, you complain about the lemons. Yeah. I was just like, ooh,
unless you, I like to take the adage from the guys from Power Thirst. When God gives you lemons, you find a new God.
Yep.
That's one of the best.
Love that one. So that was there's just a lot of, if you're not familiar with Power Thirst, just search that on YouTube. You're going to find two videos. Yeah. They are our sponsors for this episode, and they put out a wonderful product.
Yeah.
In a variety of flavors. Fizz bitch. Yeah. Why not? It's a good one. I'm quite partial to the flavor that's just called Gun.
Gun is also
so
good.
there's a lot of different things that are involved, in this show in terms of helping people realize and achieve and accomplish their goals and get to where they want to go. And you're rooting for Mikey because you want him. You secretly want to be the person who's in that position where you get that thing that you really fucking want. Yeah. And then suddenly they just quit.
Well, at the same time, though, he didn't do anything for it. He didn't earn that.
I know.
He basically just said he wanted to do it, and then he got depressed and stopped eating, so his friends worked their asses off for it, and then he was just like, man, I feel like that's going to be my kids.
Fair point, though. I mean, but to counter that point, I'll play devil's advocate with Keanu Reeves for a minute. So the whole idea, that movie. So the whole idea with this is that, sometimes when you're doing these things in life, it's not necessarily what you know, but it's who you know. And in this instance, you get to that point where you're just like, okay, great. Like, these people know him. They're helping him. It's successful. They've made that connection. They've helped him out. He's achieving that goal and that dream. Good for him. He still got there. And to quit so quickly. Now, I know, obviously, these shows are 10 minutes long, 10, 11 minutes long. Yeah. They got to wrap this up.
It's funnier,
at the same time, I would have loved to
do it. Yeah,
I know. I would have almost loved to have been the message or seen the message where it's, he's at least contemplating the fact that, like, I got this thing and I appreciate what's happened, but, in retrospect, it just wasn't exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, it was a little less harsh at the end. But that's why I'm saying it had kind of that edge, a little harsh edge to the comedy. It was almost more realistic. Like, stuff like that does happen. You can go out of your way to help somebody. They may or may not even realize it, may not even appreciate it. And then the decision that they make was, theirs and theirs alone. And it shouldn't really affect how you feel about it. But the fact that you kind of went out of your way to do these things. Now, granted, they didn't really sacrifice anything. They just spent their time helping him achieve this thing. So it's not like they lost anything except some time. But I don't know. I wouldn't know how I would respond to that. I mean, I laughed when I saw it on the show because I was just like, oh, Mikey, you big doofus. But yeah.
Yeah. I guess just in a show where they're teaching, I guess maybe they're not teaching morals or values or lessons in these episodes. It's just sort of almost non sequiturs.
It reminded me of like watching, Stand By Me or The Sandlot or, pick another Stephen King story about kids. It reminded me of It. That part where Mikey gets turned to water and sucked down a drain.
By Pennywise. He's a lovable clown.
Sucked down a drain. No, it just reminded me of like kids being kids, but trying to figure it out along the way and growing up and having stuff not always work out the way they expect it. So it wasn't like a straight up moral lesson. It wasn't like, if you do this, everything will be great. It also wasn't like a depressing, like, everything is terrible. So I don't know. It just felt realistic, which I thought was interesting for like a Disney animated cartoon for kids. That being said, do you recommend this to our listeners out there?
I would recommend checking this out. I think that it comes in small enough blocks that you can expose yourself to something pretty quickly and gauge whether or not you enjoy it. And if you want to watch more, I watched a little bit of this when I was younger. This was kind of fun, and especially this episode, I think, was fun to sort of see this microcosm of the universe that they've created for this show. And so I did enjoy that.
Cool. Would you watch more of it?
I'd maybe watch one or two more episodes. I'm curious to see some of these spoof episodes that they've done with Good Will Hunting and the 2001 Space Odyssey. So I'm going to try to recess Kubrick this up later. No, see if I can find something.
Pretty much the same for me.
What about you?
I don't want to give this a hard yes. Definitely not a no, but not a hard yes because I feel like I haven't seen enough. What we try to do is source kind of like the fan favorite episodes, and we try to find ones that a lot of the fans, for whatever the particular series is, an episode they really gravitate towards. So in the future, if we announce that we're going to do a series, or you guys just want to tell us an episode of a series that we may cover that you really like, please feel free to do that, because that we kind of follow the fandom for these episodes. So it's a little better than just watching the first episode. I still try to do that to kind of ground myself in whatever these series are about. And sometimes it's fun to just dive in and see what the hell's going on. In this case, yeah, I'd probably watch a couple more before I'd give it a hard recommendation. But I'd say check it out. I mean, it was a fun one in kind of a weird gap in my cartoon watching years. So it was nice to revisit it. I like these kids. I think they're, a good group. And I'd like to see more of them. So I think it's kind of cool. It's a good group of kids. Yeah.
Good group of
kids. Hey, if they happen to reboot this show, and I will do a little aside here about shows Nickelodeon is thinking about rebooting. If they happen to reboot this show, do you think that would be a good idea or not? It was only about 10 years ago. It's still been in syndication for quite a few years.
I think I'd be okay with
they just left this one alone.
This. Yeah, if they just left
this
alone.
I'd be fine with that too, especially because I'm not I'm not super nostalgic about this particular one. However, Nickelodeon is looking to possibly reboot such classic Nicktoons as Hey Arnold and Rugrats and possibly Doug. Yeah, so I don't.
Jesus. Doug's already been rebooted once.
Disney took over that, and they cocked it up.
We're gonna get more Doug. We're gonna get more Doug reboots than we've had Spider-Man reboots.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Boy. Well, we don't have to. We're not working.
Well, hey, it'll keep us in business when they have Doug 2.0 and Rugrats all grown up again. I hope it's just like Rugrats retire at this point.
I honestly want it to just be Rugrats deal with regular
college
day-to-day regular day-to-day bullshit. It's just them at shitty jobs. I mean, having to deal with asshole people.
It could be just them. They did that creepy thing where it was like Rugrats all grown up, and it was creepy because they still had their baby heads on like adult bodies. Super creepy stuff. Don't watch it. But they might do something like that. I have no idea. It's just, again, we've said this before, that these studios, they don't have new ideas, or the ones that they have, they don't want to invest in because it's more expensive to invest in a brand new idea and hope that it, cross your fingers, spend the marketing money, hope that it catches on, than it is to just bank on this nostalgia. Now, I know exactly, that's what we're doing here too at the show. We are using our own nostalgia to kind of go back and watch these cartoons, but honestly, buddies, we're not making any profit off of it, so we're just having a good time revisiting these shows. The studios and stuff, they're trying to sell you the same old stuff kind of repackaged, and I get pretty tired of that. I'd love to see some older stuff rebooted for a newer audience, not stuff that was on the air like 10 years ago and had about 7 movies made, but that's just my 2 cents. Anything else on that news, friend?
No.
Now I've thoroughly depressed you and myself.
Good. No. It's. I'm gonna sit and think about that for a while because that's challenging news to
sorry to
hear.
Shoehorn this in at the end of the episode. Well, in the meantime, why don't you let the listeners know where they can reach you on social media and what you'll be up to for the next week?
Hey, so this episode is going to be coming out on September 7th.
Happy Labor Day, everybody.
And Happy Labor Day, everybody. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Sean Paul Ellis. And starting September 9th through the 12th, I am going to be performing in, as well as I'm also a producer for the District Improv Festival. What's the District Improv Festival, you ask? Well, I know. Thank you. You are such a wonderful audience, Dave. It is an annual improv festival that happens in the DC area. So if you are within the Maryland, DC, Virginia area, please come out and check it out. You can find tickets and information at districtimprov.org. And I will be performing myself during this festival on Thursday, September the 10th in the 930 block with Knox. And we're going to be doing improvised TED Talks.
Awesome, man.
So come on out and check it out.
A TED Talk. You're going to find out everything that Sean learned from his first day at school at these TED Talks.
These TED Talks are probably the weirdest and craziest TED Talks you've ever.
Dude, that's a great tagline.
Can't be any weirder than the guy telling you to. Can't be any weirder than the guy telling you to fold like a paper towel 7 times in order to wipe your hands more effectively. So don't worry, we got this one.
These guys can actually fold a paper towel 8 times. So take that guy.
Ooh, it's tough.
Yeah,
origami guy. Dave, what are you up to?
Actually, by the time you guys hear this episode, I will be hopefully survived Dragon Con in Atlanta. So you can check out the website collider.com for all my coverage on all things Dragon Con. We're going to have a lot of shots of different cosplay things that go on there, shots from the parade, just folks dressed up in costume hanging out around the downtown Atlanta area. Also have interviews with such folks as, let's see if I can remember all of them, Danielle Panabaker, Katie Cassidy, possibly David Ramsey, John Wesley Shipp, And I'm definitely forgetting somebody, but it's going to have to stay that way. So basically from Arrow, The Flash, and I think Legends of Tomorrow too. So we'll have some interviews for upcoming CW shows. So it should be good times. So yeah, check me out over at collider.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at DrClawMD. If you're interested in finding out more about Saturday morning cartoons, you can do so at our website, SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. Remember, that's morning with a U. You can also check us out on Twitter at MorningToons. Check out Sean's handiwork over at the Tumblr page, SaturdayMorningCartoons.tumblr.com. We've got a Facebook page. We've got a YouTube page. We've got podcasts that come out each and every week through iTunes and Stitcher. And we've also got the handy-dandy email, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. Please let us know if you like the show, what you'd like to hear in the future, how your first day back in school went, and what you learned. And we will continue this back-to-school month in September. I'm not 100% sure what is on the schedule for next week, but we will let you guys know. We hope you have a safe and happy Labor Day. Enjoy your day off from school after being there for like 3 days. I'm sure you need that break. But it'll be a good time.
Yeah, don't hurt yourself.
Don't stress that brain.
Don't stress that brain too much after those
don't
couple
stress
days.
your brain. Just listen to Saturday
animals.
Morning Cartoons podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Easy listening. Well, that's enough for us on our first day to school. We're going to ring the bell. You guys have a good day, and we will see you next time.
Ring,
Thanks
ring,
for listening
ring.
to our old-timey school bell. Okay, bye.